1, 2, 3.
Oh wait, my phone. It would help if I plugged the damn cable. Okay, try again.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Check, check.
Check, check, check. 1, 2. Mic check, mic check. Got it. Check, check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic check, check, check. Check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check. 1.
Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah.
Madam Clerk, we're ready whenever you're ready. I know, oh, there you go. You're back with your jacket on.
I received a letter on May 30th, 2025. Dear Madam Clerk, pursuant to my authority in Section 3-1075 of the Home Rule Charter of the City of New Orleans, there will be a special City Council meeting on June 3rd, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. The meeting will be dedicated to receiving updates on the status of security, health, and welfare within the Orleans Justice Center and any other matters that may properly come before the council. Please make the necessary arrangements to have this special meeting cablecast live on the governmental access television channel and tape for recasting in the future. Sincerely, J.P. Morrell, President, New Orleans City Council. Roll call. Councilmember Morrell. Councilmember Moreno. Councilmember Jeruso. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember King. Councilmember Green.
Present.
Councilmember Thomas.
Present.
We have 5 members. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First up, we'll have a presentation by Susan Hudson, the Sheriff of Orleans Parish, followed by Mr. Montagna. So, Sheriff's Office, the table is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to thank the City Council for the opportunity to address this urgent infrastructure issue. We acknowledge that these plumbing problems, electric problems, and other problems are long-standing and have worsened as the facility has reached its 10-year age. We emphasize our commitment to maintaining a safe and functional facility. And I just want to begin by acknowledging that this whole thing has been building for a while. The issues have been present for years. They've worsened over time. That has to do with the aging system, deferred maintenance, increased strain on our facility due to the capacity of folks in our custody. And while these challenges are significant, OPSO remains steadfast in our commitment to maintaining a safe, secure, and functional facility for both the individuals in our custody and, of course, our staff who work there every day in a very tough environment. We are not here simply to request funding. We are here to affirm our shared responsibility to ensure that our justice system operates in a humane and sustainable way. The infrastructure investment is a necessary step towards that goal. So again, thank you for your time and attention and your continued partnership. I want to turn it over to CFO Bianca Brown, who is here to talk more about our funding requests and our infrastructure issues. Chief Brown.
Good afternoon, Council. I want to call Ernie Anderson with Powerhouse. He's our general contractor. He's licensed in plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. He's going to elaborate on the issues that occurred on that day about the plumbing, what he discovered, and how it was repaired, and what's still needed to move forward.
Actually, you should probably come to the table, Mr.
Come to the table.
Come to the table.
Come on to the table.
You can introduce yourself.
My name's Ernie Anderson. I'm the owner of Powerhouse Commercial Construction, Inc. And my associate here is Johnny Bolly from Bolly Plumbing. He works with us on the plumbing side.
Yeah, so Ernie, if you can talk through what was discovered when we had the leak, the potential shutdown, the flushing issue, kind of just go through the scenario, what happened, what was repaired, and what's still to come from that.
Okay. Well, behind a completely enclosed pipe chase that was concrete on the top, the bottom, and both sides, there was a fitting in there that was not compressed. And for years, because it had a clamp on the top and the bottom, it just let the water flow with like a really, really slow leak. So some sort of a pressure increase or whatever blew the O-ring out in this, and then it just started leaking through the chase and throughout the entire building. After 2 days of searching and finally getting a camera up in this chase, which we have pictures of it, we had to chip the concrete out in order to get to the leak, which after we did that, it solved the main flooding and the pressure problem that we have with flushing all the toilets on the 4th floor. We also, there's another fitting right here, which I guess we can leave it for y'all. You can see how the copper and the fittings are all degrading in the building. We're not really sure why it's doing it, but this was another one on 4 Alpha, the 4 Alpha pod that was leaking up there, and we had to cut it out. Same thing. It was compressed. You can see the difference between the fittings, but it's degrading on the inside and starting to leak from the inside out, and it's happening throughout the building where the fittings are, usually on the 90s or 45. This is a 90 and a 45 goes like this. Wherever the water is slowing down, they're having that problem in the building.
Is that your presentation on plumbing?
Yeah, that concludes my.
Okay, I'll ask a couple of questions before. Well, actually, Ms. Thomas, you can go first. I didn't press my button.
No, Mr. Chairman, you can go.
Okay. Did you tour any of the actual cells to evaluate whether or not there was damage in actual cells that could contribute to the overall problems inside of the plumbing?
We've been in a bunch of the cells. You mean for all the different leaks?
I mean, there's been widespread reporting that due to the lockdown, there were several people that were shoving a variety of things into toilets to cause flooding. Did you evaluate or look at any of that, and could that have contributed to other? I mean, because obviously having a lot of foreign material that's not supposed to be in the pipes, could that contribute to any of the damages you saw before in your evaluation?
I mean, I guess it's a possibility, but if the water pressure was being lost in the system, then the Icon system's not going to flush correctly, and so I didn't witness anything in any toilets. No, did you?
I mean, I think the normal blanket stuff like that gets stuffed. That's just normal drainage. It won't have any interference with the water.
With the not flushing, it would go over in the
floor.
pod,
Okay, so this is the widespread flooding that was reported. From what you're saying from the leaks and the like, you're saying all of the widespread flooding was caused by this?
The flooding, yes, sir. We have leaks throughout the building because of this, and we're repairing them as we go. But the big flooding problem is this 1-inch line actually came apart and was just flooding because
Okay.
it was never compressed.
But you didn't observe or go on any of the floors and see if there was any flooding from actual cells due to inmate activity?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you provided the city of New Orleans with an estimate of all these costs, a detailed estimate of how much it would cost to do these repairs?
We have a PO already for a lot of the smaller leaks, like with the Icon system, the flush valves and stuff like that we've already turned in.
Turned into who and when?
I believe it was Miss Aaron and maybe Miss Brown.
Okay.
They give me emails and tell me turn in a estimate.
When did you turn those in?
That has nothing to do with this, but
Right.
the Icon estimate, I guess, was about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
3 or 4 weeks ago.
I may be off on the time, and it may be that might have been when we got the PO.
Okay. So that's my questions for the moment. Councilmember Thomas?
No, first, thank you. And for the public, this is an opportunity and an effort so that at least for this incident that we can come together to show the public that we're working on a solution so that we can at least minimize this, so this won't happen again. Mr. from Powerhouse Construction, Inc., there's some research on jails, correctional facilities, and 30 year is the number for each one in terms of design. Even if they're trying to do one that's cost effective, they say with proper maintenance, 30 years should be the life, but it's consistently 30 or 35 years. And this facility is only, how many years old, Sheriff?
It's only been open 10 years.
So we should, at minimum, based on what the standards are for building correctional facilities, at minimum, we should have a 20 more years of this place with just general maintenance and overall effective care of the facility. So for you, Mr. Ernie, for a building that we paid millions and millions of dollars, right? In the last administration, I think there was another sheriff there at the time. What you see in terms of plumbing and stuff, when you talk about fitting that wasn't compressed, that's plumbing 101. Period. Guess who do the plumbing work at my house when I found out how much my friend the plumber charged just to come see it? I do that now. So that's plumbing 101. So when someone like you looks at a facility that's 10 years old, that all professional estimates says it should minimum of 30 years, what do you say about that facility, especially if it would have been oversight or project management? Your expertise.
I don't know how this missed inspections, but mind you, it's
Say that
behind a
again.
concrete wall that might have, I'm sorry.
But in terms of fitting, when you compress plumbing, it shouldn't come loose, or it should not be misfit like that. And I don't have a plumbing certificate, but I do some plumbing.
Yes, sir, that's correct. It wasn't compressed at all.
You wouldn't have put that together thinking that it would come apart like it did, or not compress correctly and have that level of leak inside the walls, if you'd have done that work.
Yes, sir, it would have actually been compressed with a machine, so.
And what does the machine do?
It compresses this, just like this fitting.
Into
compresses
what?
it onto the other line. Yes, sir.
So your professional estimation, right, in terms of what went wrong with this, and this is kind of serious because we pay contractors and we pay professionals a whole lot of money on the front end. And time again, we see that the public is getting the short end of the stick, where we have to go back on streets that should have lasted longer, plumbing that should have lasted longer, infrastructure that should have lasted longer, and we're 20 years short of what the goal should have been for this facility, correct?
Yes, sir, according to what you said you researched, yes, sir.
So what went wrong when you talk about oversight or project management? In your best estimation?
Obviously, somebody didn't inspect that. And the way that it stayed running with water in it is there was a clamp on the top and the bottom, and until there was an increased pressure on this fitting, it didn't leak. So it just stayed in there for 10 years without being compressed because it was sturdy in there. And then whatever happened the other day created the pressure that popped this O-ring in here and let it flood the building.
So what do we do moving forward, given the fact that we've paid millions of dollars for a facility and millions of dollars to professionals and supposedly oversight, that it doesn't work? What's the next step? How do we fix it or make it work? And you can't guarantee that there isn't a lack of compression in other parts of this multi-million-dollar facility, correct?
Yes, sir. It's all insulated and coated. We would never be able to see it until there was a leak.
So the building could actually be falling apart?
I don't know about the building.
Well, you know what I mean.
Solid concrete, but.
Well, leaking.
Yeah,
we're in the leak
plumbing
now.
side. It's very possible finding this kind of erosion and stuff inside the building that we're going to have a lot more leaks. We have a list of them now that are all mostly in fittings.
If we don't deal with this emergency situation, then your best expertise on what you see happening, not just with this portion of it, but if potentially this is happening, we got shoddy work in the rest of the facility, how do you prognosticate what can potentially happen next?
Well, I would say that we need to take preventative measures, which would be have cameras in all these chases so that, I mean, obviously this leak started out slow, so having a way to see if we have water going in the drain or a way to see in the pipe chases, if we start having something, we can go in there, shut it off, and repair it before we damage the building.
Given what you've seen about this, a lack of compression, and that's plumbing terms, the fact that it wasn't sealed correctly, whoever did this work, would you hire them to do your work?
Man, I hate to be asked that question.
But you ought to have been asked.
If that individual master plumber, probably not that individual plumber. I would have a problem with him doing something like that and missing that.
So what do we do moving forward to fix this piece? Because if it happened there, it could erode from the inside again, and that's potential other situations that could not only cost us in terms of having the building be vulnerable, but also just a waste of millions of dollars of what should be a new facility. What do we do next?
Like I said, we need to have some type of oversight in the pipe chases and try to catch them as they happen and fix them before we do anything else that might damage the building. You really don't have a choice. You can't go in and change all these. So here's a perfect example, and I'll give y'all this to look at. You can take this one that wasn't compressed. You can take this one that was compressed. Look at the difference. So how do you determine which one is bad and which one isn't? The best way to do it is just have a way to look in the pipe chases and see if there's anything failing and jump right on it right then.
Sheriff, do you have a leak monitor?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a leaky pipe monitor? Or were you trusting that was built inside of the facility and inside the walls was sustainable?
Oh, yeah, we were trusting that. I think we found 2 so far, correct? So far, the uncompressed fittings so far, but there could be many more. It's a big, big building.
So I think as of today, we have 16 significant pipe leaks.
16.
16 as of today. That's what we've identified. We're going into shutting off the domestic hot water line tonight to work to repair these. We have 16 active leaks. These leaks are causing damage to control panels that now we have to replace. So it's leading to other things that now has to be replaced. But as of now, we discovered we have 16 active leaks.
And when were you guys first aware of that? You had this level of faulty plumbing or maintenance, well, I remember the locks and all that, but when you talk about building, especially coming from a family of builders, right, and people who are skilled labor, once a building starts to erode from the inside, that's a whole nother level, right? That's a whole nother level of cost.
Yes.
Sheriff, you've alerted us about the locks. You've alerted us about the faulty construction with the tier on the other level. But when were you aware that this building was leaking from the inside?
This extent we just found out when this issue occurred, and we were concerned that there wasn't going to be water in this inside of the jail, which, you know, there can't be a house with no plumbing in it. That's just not possible. We can't keep those folks there. So this came up in the last couple of weeks as we've been looking at this major flood issue that came up. We always have plumbing issues, though. We have too many folks in there, and as we have too many folks, it continues, just like at your house. If you got too many people in your house using the plumbing, it breaks down. It just does if you use it and use it. And so we have had plumbing issues over the years dealing with those, sometimes because they stuff things down there. We have a machine that grinds up things to keep it from gumming up the works. But all that stuff just has to be maintained, and that's what we're trying to do is preventative work, get these things back to where they're supposed to be, and then preventative work, which is much cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, but toilet stops and using plumbing to communicate, for folk who are not familiar with prison, they use those systems to be able to engage each other even when you're not there. That's a altogether different thing than just a stopped-up toilet or some communication stuff or strings, those types of things that are being passed through the system that they learn how to do. But leaking inside of the walls, the fact that pipes weren't compressed, when were you aware of that issue?
When the water became apparent, because as Mr. Anderson was talking about, there's no cameras in there to see that. We can't see what's inside these walls. So one of the fixes would be to put some cameras in there so we can detect leaks much earlier and also pinpoint them much quicker. A lot of water flowed before we were able to, because there are no cameras to figure out exactly where it was at. Is that correct, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, ma'am.
So talk through your process of how you discovered this, Mr. Anderson. You had to go through the actual prints.
Well, we ended up finding how to isolate it the one night because we didn't have plumbing prints, and somebody found them, I guess, in the, is that called the kitchen building, the one in the back?
Kitchen warehouse.
Kitchen warehouse.
And that was how we figured out how to isolate, but we actually had to climb up, like, what is that, like 16 feet to get on top of a ductwork, and that's when we saw the water coming through this chase. And I'll provide her with a picture once we chipped it out and actually got in there, there's no way to see it. So when we were trying to find this leak, we're going on, obviously you would go to the floor above you, and so you go to the floor and it's dry. And then you go over here and it's soaking wet. It's leaking on the, what is that, where the deputies are, the
Pod control.
pod control. It was leaking in there, and so finally we just had to climb up all the way in there, and we stuck a camera up, and that's when we saw, we didn't know at that time that it wasn't compressed. We just saw that the fitting was leaking. So then we had to get a jackhammer the concrete out, and when we climbed in there, then we saw that, luckily it had a clamp, like I said, and that's the only reason why it was probably missed in the beginning, because if they didn't have the clamps, it would have just popped loose like a pressure line not glued, on a PVC.
So lastly, I mean, we could, I don't want to belabor, but so that the building isn't further compromised from within or inside the walls, Sheriff, what do we do to fix this?
Well, we're putting our game plan together. Number one, we've identified some of the leaks. There are probably some more which will also come up. And then we also, there are other parts of the infrastructure that support this. So the controls at the kitchen warehouse that we need to deal with, there are controls for all these systems. And so they'll alert us about what's going on, and we can shut them down to keep it from flooding. And then we still have our temporary detention center, which has people in it because, again, of the population. And that was meant for temporary detention, but now we're using it full time. That plumbing is not nearly where it needs to be. And some of the amounts that we're going to talk about today are necessary because we are still using that facility, and that plumbing is also breaking down.
That's it now, Chairman. Thank you.
Council Vice President Moreno.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay. I'm trying to understand here, obviously that there are the emergency issues, right, that need to be handled, and those are being worked on right now. Is that correct?
The final, what I would say major emergency thing is happening tonight. We're doing it on graveyards tonight. Yes.
Okay. So that's happening right now. And then, Sheriff, as you mentioned, we have some more long-term issues as well. Is that correct?
Well, they're kind of short-term as well, like, because the TDC where people are living at as well, the showers, the toilets, all that stuff has to be fixed. It's part of the consent judgment. It's just also part of the humane facility as well. So those are short-term as well. The controls, I think, are also needed to be fixed now, just because so we can isolate things, but I may be wrong about it.
No, you're correct, yeah. So right now, that building at TDC that Sheriff's referring to, that building, we're right now getting about 3 showers currently rebuilt in that building because they only had like one operable shower working, correct? Yeah, one to a 60-man pod. So we had to hurry up and do emergency work to get that up and running. That's part of the consent judgment. So right now we're putting money into that. It's a drainage issue overall that we're still pumping money in to get that resolved. And as long as there are residents there, I mean, we have to complete the work and move forward with it. But right now, I think we've identified in the interim about $300,000 to $400,000 of work that needs to be done. Long term, we're looking at, for the preventative maintenance, about $900,000 total.
Okay. Thank you. So Mr. Anderson, on the emergency pieces, you're estimating the cost of that to what Ms. Brown just talked about, roughly $300,000. Is that correct?
To fix all of to pay for what we've already done and then go in and fix, it's going to be somewhere around that, yes.
And OJC, right?
OJC is part of what we talked about earlier, yeah. OJC and then the Icon and then this hot water recycle line that we're doing tonight is all going to be around that.
Okay. So that's $300,000.
That's without any of these things failing anymore or any of that stuff.
And you mentioned before that appears to be some kind of plumber/contractor error. Is that correct?
It not being compressed and the building being operating, then somebody missed it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, obviously you do a whole lot of work. Just generally speaking, if you make a mistake and you're doing work, isn't it up to the person who does the work to ultimately come back and then fix it? If you were at fault?
After 10 years? Not really sure what your statute is there.
Yeah, and
but if it were something that my guys did and we found it, remember it's in a completely enclosed concrete
Right.
chase, so easy to miss if it's not leaking. But,
So that's a really good point that you just made. So we need to go back and take a look at that contract specifically for the plumbing, see who it was, and see what kind of recourse we could have. I know that it's more than 10 years, but there could be some kind of still recourse, and us not being completely on the hook here for paying for these repairs. But now, obviously, we all need to work together to figure out, how we're going to pay for this. Sheriff, I just want to understand exactly the purpose that you're before the council. Are you before the council because you are seeking additional dollars from the city for these emergency repairs?
Yes.
Is there any money that you currently have, cash on hand, or within your fund balance that you could utilize towards this?
I'm going to ask CFO Brown to explain that and what those funds are for.
Yeah, so based on the urgent issues, we can kind of utilize funding that we do have in fund balance. Right now, we've redirected some funds out of our general operating to support the razor wire that we need to get installed. Also the gate covering, so we won't have another escape. So we doing some emergency actions, and we kind of took in funding out of our general operating, and we reallocated that to these capital projects to secure the building as safe as we can at the moment. So, I mean, we do have, in the interim, $300 to $400 to get it repaired, but moving forward, I don't see, I roughly see in about fourth quarter us really predicting to run out of funding to support this overall.
How much money do you have in unassigned fund balance right now?
So unassigned fund balance, our balance, I think as of 12/2024, they kind of said it was about $8 million roughly.
Okay.
$8 million. We have about 3-point-something million that's dedicated toward FEMA capital projects and litigation. We also have a letter from our attorney, Gaffney & Gaffney. He kind of talks about the FEMA funding that's available and how it needs to be held for further litigation that we're in, that we can share with you all to kind of review that. And we also have the civil division funding that's kind of used to repurpose civil to kind of pay for things over there that's currently not funded under the criminal budget. So that funding balance is kind of allocated out for those things.
But on the unassigned fund balance, do you figure you've got roughly $5 million right now? Fair, at least?
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say we have probably unassigned. Well, it's unassigned, but it's not unrestricted. So that means it's obligated. It has some current obligations to it.
Let me bring up Mike Waggis back, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. I know that he's been doing some initial reviews. Mike Waggis back, just for those who are not aware, is the state legislative auditor. The city council's been working with our state legislative delegation to come in and do a full review of the funding streams that just come up to either you can come to the table, Mike, or you can go to the podium, whichever you'd like. And he can walk us through a little bit of what he's been finding with funding, just so that we can all get on the same page and know what's really available and what can be utilized, and then where the city then can come in to help. Mike, thank you, Mr. Wagisback, Legislative Auditor, Mr. Wagisback, for being with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your team who's here now on the ground working to take a look at the different funding streams with the sheriff? I understand the sheriff's team has been very cooperative. And tell us what you have found and what you're seeing as far as fund balance and the unassigned unrestricted piece.
Sure. So at the request, we had a legislative request that reached out to my office as legislative auditor and asked us to come in and assist. We put together a special audit team that kind of has the special skill set to kind of get in here and do some sort of a broad analysis of the operations and the fund balance. So what we kind of focused on initially was some of the operational stuff, getting the policy and procedures last week. And starting this week, we really wanted to zero in on the quote-unquote fund balance or cash balances. Kind of want to see where we're at. They have unaudited financial statements as of 12/31/2024. They're not finished. We expect Eisner-Emper to complete that process by the end of June. So that'll be a good starting point to see where they begin as far as the beginning of the year. Internally, we met with the Sheriff's Finance Director, which, by the way, the Sheriff, the CFO, Their staff have been open book about everything, fully transparent. Everything we've asked for, they provided. So it's been a really a neat cooperation with auditors. So, but to kind of give a little short recap of where we are, where we see things, after posting some journal entries to their unaudited statements, and again, it's unaudited still, no report's been issued. It looks like they'll begin the year being January 1, 2025, with approximately $12 million. Now, there was some non-recurring one-time transactions that took place shortly thereafter. They had a settlement of litigation with the original contractors on, I guess, the Phase 1, Phase 2 building of the Justice Center. That was about a $5.6 million number, along with about a $725,000 settlement as a part of that settlement with a subcontractor. So only about $2.7 million of that was accrued as a payable at the end of 12/31/2024. So to kind of sort of reset that fund balance, really what we see they're starting with at the beginning of the year, before any revenues or anything's brought in or anything spent, is about $8.4 million. Now, the cash accounts are healthy. We have unrestricted general funds that we're looking at as of, we looked at the year end and we kind of rolled forward. We got the accounts, they were all reconciled. We went through it as of April 30th, which is the most recent close that we could put our hands on. So as of April 30th, 2025, in general fund dollars, approximately $23.5 million is unrestricted. Now, some of that is, as the CFO spoke about, there's about $3.9, call it $4 million in a FEMA account as part of the general fund operation. It'll eventually be released. They can spend in the general fund or send over to the capital projects fund to continue to spend on whatever the wish list of major repairs or new construction can be made. So there is cash flow there. I mean, if I were to advise a sheriff as her personal CFO, I would say you're probably good to go with about $5 million of emergency spend on different stuff before the city would need to really fund. That's just a really high level, just picture that we wanted to point out. I mean, they've consistently in 12/31/23 had about $22 million. In 12/31/24, about $22 million again. And then, actually, let me back up. That was about 23. And then, as of April, reconciled in the bank is in total with all funding is about $35 million. But I'm looking specifically at the general fund, which is more of the unrestricted funds. And as we sit here today, that's about $23.5 million. So there's working capital, there's cash flow. If you said, I just want to go ahead and spend what was left over from prior years, you've got about $8.4 million that has not been spent. It is unrestricted. It's part of going to be part of their beginning fund balance. There is one more payment associated with the litigation, but that's going to be money that's going to flow from FEMA once all that's reconciled. It's going to flow from FEMA and then to the settlement. I think that's about $4.6 million thereabouts. So that won't affect the fund balance.
All of that is great news. More than roughly $20 million cash on hand plus $8.4 million in the fund balance. And let me ask you this too. Okay, so you've got a new millage that was just approved. Mr. Wagasback, I think it's roughly share of $13 million every year with that millage. Is
correct?
That
I think it's I think they'll net approximately $13 million. And the beauty of the financial picture, which is, well, if you call it beauty or not, but their bonds were paid off. I think there's 2 issues that were paid off in 2024. There's 2 more issues on the books that will pay off in 2026. I think September 1 of 2026. So really, they have the capability of bonding some things out now with their existing millage. Bond counsel will have to advise whether it has to go to a vote of the people to issue those general obligation bonds. That may be a question. But they certainly have the ad valorem tax now to bond out to do a lot of improvements if needed. Obviously, you only want to bond what you have to bond or need to bond.
But roughly on a $13 million, recurring millage, you could roughly get anywhere, what, $70-80 million off?
Yeah, it would be a 10-year issue because it's a 10-year tax. I think it begins January 1, 2026, depending on when they issue it, what the current rate is. and any other obligations they may have to pay. But yeah, I think they would have plenty of dollars to do any type of major renovation. You know, and look, I happened to walk through the facility with the Attorney General on Tuesday of last week, saw some of the challenges. You know, the plumbing thing kind of surfaced after our tour, but obviously plumbing's a priority. But I'll tell you, just from my past sheriff life, those locks are a big priority. I would say those locks definitely need to be changed. I understand the price tag is about $5.1 million. And we're going to verify that and report, you know, do a report that's going to summarize and validate, look at the proposals, look at the bids. So we've got a lot more work to do. I would also say the light fixtures need to be changed. And I think the warden has found a good set that costs about $1,300 a piece for each individual pod. Because they're really able to tear those down, spark the wires, set things on fire, which puts inmate at risk, the correctional officers at risk. It's really a challenge. That needs to be taken care of. And then there's an integration plan to integrate the surveillance in kind of the control centers, or the brains of operating the doors, because what's red may be green, what's green may be, there's some problems with that. So they've got a new system that they're looking at to integrate with the existing system that I understand is about a price tag of $5 million. Again, that's what we've been told. We just haven't had a chance to verify everything. We never had a chance to sit with the sheriff this morning to kind of talk over, you know, where we are. We worked with our finance director this morning. I know she was busy on her prepping for the council meeting. So we've got a lot more work to do, but I think it's not a bleak picture. I think we can all work together and consult the sheriff through this.
Yeah, and on those extra needs that you mentioned, no doubt for those, be great on that bonding option to be able to cover those needs. But as far as what we're here for today, obviously the plumbing issues, do you think they have roughly enough money at this time to cover that $1 million for the, you know, $300,000 of emergencies plus the additional necessary for the others?
Yes.
Okay,
You know.
thank you.
Are you done, Councilman?
Yeah, so,
All right. Sorry, I got a couple of follow-up questions.
And then we'd like to respond.
Okay. If you want to respond to the auditor now, I can give you the opportunity before I ask questions, or would you rather wait till my questions are done?
you can go ahead. I'll
Okay.
respond afterwards. Thank you.
First question, just because for our plumbers here, were you guys contracted before or after the escape? It seems like with your 3-4 week window, that would be before the escape, right?
We were doing, I've been in there doing HVAC and electrical for probably about 8 months, and then we started doing the plumbing about 90 days before that, I believe.
Okay, so 9 years beforehand, and I asked that because in the media commentary that you've made, Sheriff, you talked about the long-standing plumbing issues that need to be addressed and how you've given the council and the administration lots of notice on it, correct?
The infrastructure issues as a whole, yes.
Okay, well, the reason why I asked that is because I have in front of me your capital report you gave to the federal judge on May 12th, where you list out all of the pending issues. Plumbing is not in it. I understand you guys discovered some plumbing issues, but words matter. And when you constantly say the council and the administration have been aware of the plumbing issues, there's no, I've looked in my emails, Mr. Montano will be here in a second. We have not been told by you that there are substantial invasive $1 million plumbing issues. And I want to clear the record today, because if you have information you want to share with us where you sent us something about plumbing before this most recent plumbing issue that you brought to our attention, I want to clear the air now. Have you communicated with this council prior to today? And I say today because I still don't have estimates in my email regarding plumbing issues. I understand emergent plumbing issues, but your words, what you've been saying is these are long-standing plumbing issues the council's been aware of. When did you notify the council of your plumbing issues?
We have notified you every budget cycle, every chance we get up here that we have infrastructure issues, and the plumbing's been a part of them. We did not have this major leak until recently. Which almost threatened to shut down the Orleans Justice Center.
2026, 2030 capital budget request that you presented to Judge North. I do not doubt you're talking about connectivity, emergency generators, locking system modernization, development costs of phase 3. This is what you've presented, forward-facing all of us. And I'm not disregarding or not acknowledging you have brought to our attention repeatedly these specific issues. There is literally, in your request overview for 2025 funding requests, Phase 3 connectivity, locking system controls, generators, Phase 3 development costs. What I'm saying is, I'm going to clear the air today. You have said repeatedly to the public, you cannot convolute infrastructure to include plumbing when you didn't say plumbing.
Incorrect. And those are agreements
Where?
that we
Show me
made
where.
with the city about those specific issues with the judge's help. That's why those issues are there, because the judge was assisting us with getting those major issues taken care of. That's not all the issues in the system.
You're saying right now, under oath, that you've made Judge North aware of these plumbing issues previously.
The plumbing is,
No, I'm just,
yeah, so the plumbing issues have just, they have arisen to this magnitude recently. We weren't aware of the plumbing issues when we did that.
To be clear,
I
clear,
don't disagree with what you're saying. I hear what you guys are saying. This is an emergency issue. My issue is with how you've contextualized plumbing as a long-standing issue the council and the administration have been aware of. I agree. What we're hearing today is a very important issue we're willing to wrap our heads around. I want you to point me to whatever documentation you provide to the judge or the council on the long-standing plumbing issues. Do you have that?
I'm sure we do, because the monitors, who are the judge's eyes and ears, are aware of everything that goes on in this facility. Everything. And the plumbing has been an issue. And that's how we relate this information to the judge on a
Brown,
monthly or
I'm going
weekly
to ask you
basis.
directly, if you could send to the council after this meeting, point to documentation that supports you made the council and the city aware of the long-standing plumbing issue. What I hear today, and I acknowledge it, is an emergent plumbing issue. I would also add, just so that we can all be on the same page, who installed these original pipes?
I don't know who the actual plumber was on it.
I believe it was Goody.
Goody?
Yeah.
Okay. Two things. One, it's very helpful when you have a system like brass and you require contractors to be in it to be able to quickly track who installed what their scope of responsibility is, and when they close the pipes. I say that because, thanks to the soothing of a better attorney than me, Councilmember Harris, the statute of limitations on plumbing inside of a stone building is 10 years. So if we know who the plumber is, you know which date they installed the pipes, we may have an action against the plumber who did the bad plumbing job. But when you're in a system like brass, you could pull that up like that. You could say, who was the plumber? When was the job completed? When was their final payment? When was their final inspection? We would have that at our fingertips, and you would be able, with the city's help, to go recover some of the money that we're going to have to pay to these plumbers to fix the bad plumbers' works. That is kind of the benefit of a brass and tracking who does what.
I understand, Councilmember, but
I used brass for 6 years, and I don't remember being in that pinpointed. That's fine. We look forward to hearing more about brass tomorrow in the meeting that we've scheduled with you to talk about it.
I appreciate that, and to the point, I don't think that the police monitor had to do that much contracting that needed blast. In your sheriff's office,
we
y'all
had
are
enough.
constantly, in the sheriff's office, you have a whole different degree of requirements as far as the amount of contractors you need. And it is important for us that we know who's doing work in the sheriff's office, because at times like this, having the information immediately available, I mean, we would know right now, if you and Brass had that contractor, we know when they stopped their work, when they were paid, and we know whether or not we get the city attorney to sue them immediately to preserve that 10 years to try and recover some of that money, because we're going to have to pay another plumber to fix the work. No one disagrees with that. As far as the reserves, I think I will reserve my comments on who pays for what till after you respond. I do want to say something, and Mr. Montano will follow up afterwards. There is significantly a communication issue between the sheriff's office and the rest of the city. I know that Mr. Geruso sent y'all emails regarding specific information. God, let me look back on when he sent this. He sent y'all an email on May 21st requiring some significant information with no response. Mr. Montano will speak towards the email he sent y'all a ways back as well, but we need information in real time, and we need to know what's going on. I found out about your plumbing issues from the press. if you expect us to be a partner in helping you find money, then you should be informing us as to what you need. I can tell you, any other department in the city, Trey's sitting over there, if there's an issue, we get a call, we get informed on it, and we know what's going on where are the receipts, where are the estimates for work. I will tell you, you guys sent an estimate 3 weeks ago, the city of New Orleans still hasn't seen it. That's a problem. Because if you're asking us with these broad numbers, I need $5 million for plumbing, you know it'd be nice? An estimate from the plumber, seeing how much that costs, because we need to look internally and see, no offense, if your estimate's high, if your estimate's low, we got to compare it, we got to shop it. RFQs and RFPs are a thing. We need to have all that information in front of us, and we're sitting here today, considering your request, we still haven't seen your estimate, sir. I'd love to see it, because the sheriff hasn't provided it. So if you could get it to us, I'd appreciate that. I see Mr. King and Mr. Green have their buttons pushed. Do you want to wait for their response, or you want to go now? Mr. King? Okay, they'll wait for a response. Thank you.
Yeah, so moving forward, in response to the fund balance, so as of now, with cash on hand, we have about 10.5 million. That is where we stand as of now. We have about 2.2 million that's dedicated to opioid abatement, ARPA, seizure, and about 6% of that is dedicated toward paying back the current bond issue that we have, about 910,000. So also in that, we have about 1.9 million that's dedicated towards civil, and we still have the 3.9 million in FEMA funding that we don't have clear direction on how to move forward. So these numbers that we're given were from April 30th. Today, we're at June 3rd, so we've had, 2 payrolls, we've had 3 accounting cycles. The money has really, diminished. Not only that, but we report out on accrual basis. The report that we send to you all is on cash basis. So it shows what's coming in, what's coming out, so it doesn't really match to the report we do with accrual, but what's in the pipeline to come. So we have expenditures, and we know things are coming through the pipeline that we've kind of budgeted and prepared for, and that's what we were saying, that the funding, if we can get support on that issue to support these urgent plumbing needs. So even though you're hearing this balance, we still have, I think that number includes the civil division that operates without funding from the council. We also have the FEMA funding that's still current in litigation that we haven't got clearance from, and I'll share this recommendation from our council, Gaffney and Gaffney. And we also have the detail and civilian background funding that's all out for AP that we have to take into consideration. And the reason we haven't done the issue on the FEMA reimbursement, I mean, that was based on a PW, the prior worksheets. And basically what we have to determine now is if we're going to reimburse capital projects or if we're going to reimburse general funds, if the funding is going to be clean and clear. And I think, Mr. Mike, you're familiar with where we at with that. So we haven't had a chance to do that only because we've been buried with audits. I think doing audits back to back, year to year, we were 2 years behind with audit reports, legislative audit reports. This is what the sheriff office inherited. They've done the work, they've gotten that completed. We're on schedule to get this audit completed on time. Not only that, we have to do additional work on a day-to-day basis to support this. So, you know, when you talk about the plumbing issues and things of that nature, I can go to our plumbing report just dating back from our work orders from January to December 2024. We currently had about 548 work orders just related to plumbing overall. So the plumbing, it's been an issue. We supply this information to the federal monitors as they come in. So they know it's an issue. They've documented it. They've shown need for it. Not only that, but if you look at the doors and hardware, our total work orders we've submitted, 1,637 work orders we have on the doors alone, just the repair.
So you said the plumbing was in January of 2024?
No, I say this report dates back to January 2024 to current.
Okay, and it has plumbing in it?
Yeah, plumbing alone,
And that was
548
and
work
that was
orders.
submitted to the council?
No, it wasn't submitted.
Okay.
No, we submitted to the federal monitors.
And then, Ms. Brown, I know that Mr. Wagasback said that you all have been fully cooperating with this audit. what you just relayed to the council, did you all provide that information to the auditors and Mr. Wagasback?
No, not at this time. I think we've talked through some of the issues. We haven't provided any documentation. We verbally communicated this with the Director of Finance. She's verbally communicated these issues, but we haven't provided hardcore documentation.
And we did not speak before this meeting, so I didn't know any of this was going to be, or we would have had a chance to talk about it in advance.
Wait, y'all didn't talk?
We did not.
You didn't know he was going to be here?
I did not know he was going to be here, but I knew he was in our offices looking through things. And Mike said he tried to get in my office, but I wasn't aware of that.
Just for clarification, when my staff entered the building and entered the conference room, they were behind closed doors working on their presentation. So we chose not to interrupt. We got with the finance director. We kind of had, we were just kind of piecing together some information we had missing. So it was nothing nefarious. We just didn't have an opportunity.
Yep.
I've also mentioned that, of course, this is a management decision, but they kind of look at the civil division and the criminal division as two separate, and they are, but it is just one general fund. Sheriffs operate as one general fund, so that if you're short on the civil side, criminal side can pick up the expense. So, it's one general fund bucket. They have various accounts. I think they have nearly 44 checking accounts. So
44 checking accounts.
They're just separated for different reasons, different purpose, but it's all general fund monies. So that's why it took a little time to pull together our cash balances.
And Councilman Moreno, if I can bring this to your attention, we did a revenue anticipation note, which similar to what Councilmember Giarrusso mentioned, we did it in 2010. In 2010, the note, we got it renewed yearly up until 2020. The amount of interest was $965,000 we paid on that for only $6 million. So the amount of strain that it put on the agency from that time frame to 2010 to 2020, $965,000. And I think, the sheriff inherited this, but, the previous administration, they had to find a bank to do it. The bank did it. Then that bank dropped them. They had to go to the bond commission, get the approval. Another bank picked them up just due to the history of, not paying. That it has nothing to do with the sheriff, but it does show that when we did this in the past, this revenue anticipation note, we paid $965,000 in interest over a period of 10 years.
So
go ahead.
I know that Councilmember King's next. I have just one final follow-up on my previous question that you were responding to. So from what Mr. Wagasback said, what his numbers or his office sees, that you've got, roughly a little bit more than $20 million cash on hand and a fund balance of roughly a little bit over $8 million. What do you see? What do you think you have cash on hand, and what do you think you have in fund balance?
I'm not going to disagree because he's looking at 12/24 and he has up to April 30th reconciliation. So the numbers are accurate. I would just say that we've kind of separated it internal, like he said, with the criminal and civil, also with the FEMA kind of backing that out. And we've also had 2 pay periods through that time frame. That was about maybe $3.4 million. So kind of reducing that amount, I'm looking at cash on hand about 10.5.
What are you looking at fund balance?
Fund balance, we're still looking, if you look at it about, as of 12/31, 2024, still unaudited, we're still showing about 8.1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman King and Councilman Green.
All right. Ms. Brown, Mr. Wagasback, and Sheriff Hudson, a lot of numbers were thrown out in terms, and it could be a bit confusing, so I'm sure the general public may be confused. Can you just, anybody, plainly tell me, is there enough money in, whether it's the fund balance, cash on hand, to cover the costs that you all need?
For the urgent repairs, yes.
So you do all have
For the
enough money?
300,000 to 400,000, it's enough to cover. But moving forward, I can't confirm that we would have enough to cover the additional repairs for what hasn't been discovered. But for right now in the interim, there is funding to support that. So we're basically we're not gonna do something that was planned to do to probably support some other preventative maintenance that we're experiencing. We're gonna shift the funding from there to redirect it toward this to pay.
And how much do you anticipate may be needed to fix any future plumbing
So
issues?
we estimated just back 900,000. Now, we've worked, in the interim, it's 300 to 400,000. That's what his estimate came in at. 900,000, that's what we estimated total. We still have some issues with the escape that we're dealing with right now that we had to do to fund that. We had to take money from general operating fund to support that. You know, the razor wire, we had to get the doors, we getting the quotes on the doors. It's a lot of things that's going into this that are planned for the funding that we do have available. So even though you're seeing that cash balance, we still have some obligations that are planned for that funding, that actual funding. So I would say anywhere between 500,000 and 600,000 we don't have accounted for the plumbing repairs.
Okay, so you all need about 300,000 to 400,000 for the emergency plumbing repairs and about $1 million to do anticipated plumbing work. Mr. Waggerspack, is that money available to the sheriff's office?
In my opinion, it's available.
Okay.
Granted, they're going to not spend this tomorrow. It's going to take a month or two to get invoiced and everything paid out. I think May, maybe even into June is the ad valorem tax collection months. So they'll have that cash flow coming in, plus their quarterly stuff that they get from you guys. So I think they have the cash flow. I mean, it's like I said, we sit here today, whether it's 20 million or 15 million or 10 million, there's adequate cash flow to finance these repairs.
So, Ms. Brown, you all are asking you're asking the city council for the additional funds to help. Where would that money come from the council?
Where would it come from the council?
Yes. For us to give it to you, where would you get it from?
So you would have to redirect it from other sources that has been obligated to put toward this issue, right?
But that's something that you don't want to do.
Huh?
Right? But that's something that your office is not willing to do. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I got
you
you.
all don't want to. It's tough for you to redirect funds, but we're being asked to redirect funds.
So, council member, this is what you have to understand. We're going to get another allocation from the city. It's going to be about 10.2 million. We'll get that allocation July. We have, 3 payrolls in July? Our total payroll is going to be 11.2 million just at that point. So right there, you see that eats that up to our next allocation, which will be September 1st. Right there, the food expenses are going to be 780,000. Not to mention the repairs and things that we've been committed to, that we still haven't even gotten approval for the capital projects that we have to do. So outlining the cash on hand, and that April balance really represents the millage money coming in and our allocation. So that cash is extremely high for that point in time. But just looking at the numbers, at some point in time, we're going to be here telling you we can't make payroll.
I don't want that, but you understand the position you're putting us in.
I do.
We had to take from different departments and give to the sheriff's office.
I do.
So what do we tell those departments?
I mean, we're just securing the security and safety of the facility. I mean, we don't want to experience what we've experienced in the past. So we're begging for some type of agreement or some type of help or some type of mutual agreement we can come to say, hey, if you all do this today, we'll commit to doing this further down the line. I don't know what that looks like, but we're open to it. Our discussions begin tomorrow about the brass system. We're going to have open discussions about that. We'll start that process, looking into that so that they can get the more transparent, even though we provide this information on a monthly basis. But hey, we open to do whatever needs to be done. We've opened our doors. We're transparent. We're collaborative. We're doing the work.
And I'm not saying you're not transparent or being open. I just find it very difficult to say we're going to give the sheriff's office funds that we should take from other departments when the sheriff's office is not willing to do the same. And also,
so I think, council member, if we find out that the money that is obligated for the FEMA fund, the 3.4 million, right now the reconciliation hasn't been done to confirm that money's free and clear.
Okay.
So right now the money is either going to go either way. It's going to be free and clear, or it's going to be obligated toward capital projects. Right now we said it's all obligated toward capital projects and litigation. So if once the reconciliation is completed and we can identify that funding is free and clear, then we will allocate that funding toward the work of the jail.
So how long would it take between you and Mr. Waggerspack to figure out, I'm hearing $1 million is available, I'm hearing $1 million is not available. How long would it take for you two, or your staffs, to figure out what's available before you come back to us and ask for more money?
I would say if you would give us 60 days, because right now we're in a period where we're doing our annual audit. We also have the legislative auditors, and right now we're just still working through a crisis of getting things repaired immediately. So I would ask for 60 days to really have that number reconciled.
And if that number in 60 days shows that whatever you borrowed or received from the city council, you have it, how soon would that money be in the event you get it? Because we still have to decide how soon would that money be reimbursed to the city.
Yeah, I'm sure the city will reduce our next allocation to get their money back. Yeah.
Okay.
So the next allocation would come in October 1. So I'm guessing at that time they would reduce our quarterly allocation to get those funds back, if that's the case.
Sure. My last comment is, I have a difficult time, and I know you need the money, and we all in a tight place, to say another $1 million here and take it from someone else who may need it. Whatever. I see Mr. Clinton. No, I'm saying Clinton. Mr. Smith, Vincent Smith. I see Mr. Roman. When some of the fire department facilities need to be upgraded. So just so much need, and to take this money from different departments. We have the sheriff's office who may have those funds. I just have a tough time.
I get it. And just know that the sheriff's office, they've been deprived of this for years. I mean, that's how we get here.
Yeah.
The preventative maintenance measures, they've been done. The funding has been shifted. I can't say what the predecessor did, but the things just weren't being done.
Understood.
So we're working to build that infrastructure up. I can guarantee you now those funds are being directed and they're being, put in the right place, in the right categories that they need to be utilized in. But previously, that just wasn't being done. And right now, we're at a catch-up point where we're catching up to do things that should have been done years ago that wasn't done. I mean, people have said this is a state-of-the-art building. It's not. I mean, it's falling apart. And my concern is how much more are we going to let it fall apart before we act on it?
Understood. Well, thank you for your answers.
Councilman Green.
I also thank you all for being here today, and so much has been said. I don't really have too many more things to say without being a bit redundant, but I do express to you all the sincerity of the council wanting to work with you. But it's important to recognize that sometimes it is a zero-sum game in some respects. If I take it from someplace, if I have to put it somewhere else, I have to take it. So right now, the city is involved with securing and has spent money to build a third phase of a jail. It had to be done. The federal government announced it. But it's important to recognize that not only that, but also other concerns have made the administration come back to me, for example, on projects that I wanted to see get done. Projects that were going to support youth. NORD projects, for example. I wanted to build a baseball diamond at a historic spot next to the Carver School. But I was told that the money wasn't available because it had to go into an area which was funding the jail. When you say city council, you got to take things back, you got to make some decisions. Yes, if I have to make those decisions, I want to make those decisions knowing that the decision that I made was in the best interest of the taxpayers and also that there were no alternatives available. You have admitted today that these numbers have been thrown all about the place, but that there's $8 million in cash. So at this time, I'm not going to be looking at a NORD project to defund so that we can make the money available when it's uncertain as to whether or not you're going to have the significant funds and enough funds in the future to cover those needs. So I just want to let you know, I look forward to your conversation with Mr. Wagasback, your conversation with Councilmember Morrell, but these issues become issues that the public gets concerned about when we're talking about cutting monies from certain areas to make available when there is potentially cash available to get it done anyway. I want to work with you. I'll be very reluctant unless I hear that there's a pressing need today to take money from another area because I've already done that.
And I think we're open to that, but just keep in mind, by us taking money redirecting to this project, we probably won't be able to hire the additional deputies and staff that's needed to keep the jail safe. So we have to reduce that to cover this. So we are taking money from other places to help fund this.
Yeah.
So we will be taking money from recruitment efforts. We'll be taking money that we budgeted and allocated for upcoming salaries, because right now we can't afford to take on any more staff because we don't know if we're going to be able to pay them.
I'm not so sure, but okay, we'll see after you have that conversation. Let me ask the general conversation. We've talked about this need to potentially transfer some of those who are at the facility because the facility is overpopulated. Is that a good word to say, overpopulated? Well, give me the right term for it, because you have suggested that the capacity based on staff right now, Sheriff,
Yes.
should be around 800?
Yeah, 800, 900, something like that, yes.
So let me bring up a whole totally different issue in terms of working with the state. What are we doing about that?
I think as of today, we're under population. We had 12.
Well, under the city council.
Yeah, we're under the city council
But not the
ordinance.
number for
Yeah.
our number of deputies that we have. So we've been having discussions with DOC. In fact, they're here right now again, looking at our operations and the number of folks in our facility. We have also been in conversation with DOC and the Sheriff's Association to see if there's an ability for someone to take some of these folks, whether the sheriffs or the DOC, or to move people from DOC to sheriffs and then ours to DOC. So we're in those discussions, but moving 400 people is not quite that simple, and so we're working on it still.
I recognize that it couldn't happen overnight, but I also know if the numbers that you're giving me are correct, that since the jailbreak, we transferred.
Some have been transferred.
200?
Say it again.
200? 200 people? Well, look, I can tell you that
Chief Mallett.
it was 1,482, and if you're telling me it's below 1,250, the city council's limits, that's 230 people that suddenly, because of a jailbreak just a short period of time ago, we were able to move them. If we were able to move them, why did it take a jailbreak to do it? And those are the concerns that the public has too, because that's money. If we talk about a price per inmate, every inmate that we have there has a cost associated with it. We pay $25 million a year in health care. Clearly, if there was 1/3 fewer inmates, the number would go down. It's a challenging issue, and I recognize that it's a challenge for you. But recognize that there's a reason that the public is concerned, and that would be a good example. That suddenly, because of the jailbreak, the 230 people could be transferred without repercussions, without violating the consent decree. That's reactionary. Why did it take that to have that happen? And until we get those kind of questions answered, and then we also find out about the $8 million in fund balance, I don't think that I'm in a position to go to the CAO and say I want to cut this or that to make it happen. I look forward to further communications, but there's a lot of public concern out there that we need to recognize.
Thank you. I got a couple of, I'm really struggling with the math, because I think there are two pots of money, right, Mr. Wagaspack? There is the cash reserve, there's the cash on hand. This is the cash reserve is the rollover money, right? And how much money is in the rollover money account?
Well,
or in the consideration for rollover fund balance?
What we call fund balance is basically your cash minus your liabilities, which creates your fund balance.
Okay.
So it's a difference between cash minus what you pay off the liabilities. This will be your fund balance. So that at the end of the year is what I'm referring to when you take in those couple of transactions that were non-recurring in January 2025. It kind of resets that 12.5 to about 8.7. So that, to me, is your kind of starting point as far as fund balance. Depending on what time of the year, and this is a good time of year where the cash coffers are up because of the ad valorem taxes and other things in the first quarterly payment, April 1, I think it was, so that hasn't all been spent down. But overall, year to year, unrestricted cash is around $20 million for historically the past 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so because obviously, when we talk about the amount of money the city contributes to paying your deputies, how much, well, Gilbert will speak to that in a second, but how much money does the city give you for payroll?
So the city give us a quarterly allocation of 10.2.
Okay, and you said the cost of payroll is 11.
It's about 1.6.
1.6
So it'll be
difference.
it'll be 11.2 before we get our next allocation in October.
Right, so what you're saying is the deficit between what you have to pay versus what the city gives you is about $1 million.
And that's what we use those
Okay.
funds from the millage to support those gaps.
Correct. So I guess where the council is really struggling is that we have this ongoing math problem, which is the city gives you an amount of money that we contribute towards paying your deputies. There's a deficit of about $1.6 million, but you've got a fund balance that is anywhere based upon a disagreement. Fund balance can anywhere from close to 10 to around $5 million, somewhere in that number. the challenge you're going to have before the council and the public is that if you have an emergency expenditure, it makes more sense logically, if it is an emergency, for you to pay for it and then to come to us and say, we need to be reimbursed for this. It was an emergency and it affects our ability to be able to do the things we want to do as a sheriff's office. What is very disconcerting to me right now is if you have the money to pay for a plumber and you go, oh my God, the jail's flooding, the council needs to have a meeting to give us money so we can pay the plumber. If you have the money to pay the plumber, pay the plumber.
Yeah,
then come to us and say, this paying of the plumber brought our fund balance down, and now we're at a dangerous part. We can't pay for this thing. I say that because the council and the CAO have to do Sophie's choice every day to pay for things. We are constantly trying to balance our budget by paying for things the city needs. I mean, honestly, not to belabor a point, we're going to have to cut the budget to pay for the manhunt for the escapees. We're paying for that. Not you. We're paying for that. We're paying for $200,000. The CAO will talk $200, $250 a week until these guys are caught. We are paying that, and we're going to have to make a budget cut to cover for that. So we're already contributing as the team towards resolving the issue. But it's not like we said, we're not going to pay for the manhunt till the sheriff pays us first. We didn't do that. We paid for it now.
We didn't say that either. We didn't say that either. We're alerting you that there's big plumbing bills to come and that we want your help with it. That's what we're alerting you about today. This is an emergency. If we shut down the jail, with the plumbing can shut down the jail.
Listen to what you're saying right now. You have money on hand to alleviate and prevent the jail from shutting down. Yet, you're here in front of camera saying, if you don't give us money, the jail's going to shut down. We're not near there yet.
I didn't say that. No.
It's literally what you just said. It's one thing for you to pay for the emergency and then come back to us as a CFO and say, you know what, we paid $2 million out to plumbers, our cash reserve has fallen to a dangerous point. Let's go to a regularly scheduled budget meeting and figure out how to get that problem resolved before October, and then we could have a conversation on that. What it is this is a suddenly emergent issue that your office could have absorbed that we're now having a meeting on when you could have paid for this.
We are paying for it, because if we didn't, we would be in 3 to 4 feet of water over there.
Then why are we here?
Because it is going to cause a huge issue for us now, and being able to make payroll in the future. We still have to harden the facility to and fix the locks. All these things we've already started. It's $400,000 a pod for locks. The razor wire, all these things. These are all costs that are here right now. We've got to do both. It's not one or the other. But the razor wire and all those don't have the potential to shut down the facility. The water does.
And you have the money on hand to pay for the water, correct?
We have to do both.
Yes, we all in city government have things. We are all trying to balance our checkbook with the amount of cash we have coming in and the cash we have coming out. Our CAO does that every day. Like I said, we didn't budget $200,000 plus a week for a jailbreak, but we're figuring it out because we have to. The issue is that when you're talking about shared costs and shared obligations, it's also shared pain. We all have to figure this out together, and I will tell you that I am really concerned, and this is part of why brass is so important. If we're all using the same math, the same books, then when you say we have X, we say we have Y, the numbers match up. Just today, 44 checking accounts. Mr. Wagaspack, is that including any closed checking accounts with cash in them? Or that's just 44 active?
I think that's the actives.
Okay. I would hope in your ultimate report we see that breakdown. That's important. What I'd also want to say is I was in the legislature, I think I was in the legislature, I just entered the legislature when the sheriffs were consolidated. There is no requirement that you have 2 divisions whatsoever. In every other sheriff's office in the entire state of Louisiana, there is no civil and criminal division. That is a relic of when there were 2 sheriffs. That is not you, that's your predecessor. Your predecessor probably kept them as 2 divisions. I would caution you should not do that because your civil sheriff is revenue generating. There is money generated from that is not restricted to the civil division. Civil district court and criminal district court are rich dad, poor dad. You do not have to be. You're one dad.
Yeah, there's a lot more to that civil than in the merger and what emerged out of that, which is that there are some different benefits for them. There's been a different system for them. So it's not quite apples to apples and oranges to oranges. But we inherited these accounts. I didn't go put 44 accounts. They were here, and they've been here for years before I got into office. That's got nothing to do with me. I'm trying to manage this.
Well, and to that point, I want to be clear. I'm not saying you created 44. Well, actually, it might be well more than 44. It could be 50 for all we know, or 100. What we're saying is these are all the best practices the city is willing to help you with to consolidate. And the Sheriff's Association has tremendous resources. There are not a lot of sheriffs activating with 44 checking accounts. I think that this is an opportunity right now to figure out what the best practices are to consolidate into things like it would be super easy for you if you had a streamlined general fund to know what your cash liabilities are. Like you're balancing 44 checkbooks.
No, so we have 44, we have a general fund. Those 44 accounts, that can be for that's inmate services. Those accounts are obligated, even those accounts are obligated to, no, not all 44. We probably could consolidate a few, but those accounts are certain accounts that we have to have set up for certain purposes.
That is tremendous. I hear what you're saying, but that is tremendously troubling. And I think that...
So you're saying going into brass, you all are going to take our accounts, you're going to help manage all of this? That's what you're saying?
The CAO is over there. I'm sure I'll be part of the conversation. What I'm saying is...
We're going to manage our accounts.
Yes,
we'll work with Mr. Wagaspack.
What I'm saying is use Mr. Wagaspack and the Sheriff's Association as a resource to see what are best practices for sheriffs. I am not, to be clear, because I think you're feeling this way, I'm not saying you created 44 accounts. You're managing 44 accounts. What I'm saying is let's all take this collectively as an opportunity to streamline things to make it easier for yourself and the city. That's what I'm saying.
And that may not be possible, council member. We don't know we know the history behind those accounts, and some of those accounts we have to keep the way we have to keep them. I'm not saying we have to keep all 44, but some of those accounts you have to keep them the way that they're set up. They're set up for that specific purpose.
But I'll just say this, we're going to look at that. We'll look at that. We have no issues looking with that, but you cannot fix everything that was wrong in just 3 years. That's just not possible. Especially when the population was rising, all these things were going on. You have to deal with what you've got right in front of you. And we'll get to all of these things.
We're going to work with the sheriff on this, so we're going to put together, we're going to drill down on these accounts, their purpose, their legal requirements, whether they have to be separated from general fund or not. We can do that.
Thank you for answering the question that I was actually asking. Okay. Mr. King, Mr. Thomas. King, you're first.
Thank you. So, Sheriff, I want to take a step back and just look at this like from a bird's eye view. If in the event you don't get the funds from the city and you have to shut the prison down, what happens? Let me ask you this. If you don't get the money from us, then what happens?
For this plumbing issue?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to continue to operate, and then when we go into deficit, we'll be back asking for more money.
Will the jail shut down?
If the plumbing didn't get fixed, the jail will shut down.
So without the money from us, get the plumbing fixed, will the jail shut down?
No, we're going to move forward. We're going to redirect the funding from other budget line items to cover this. So some other things will go undone. Like you said, you're paying $200,000 a week to support inmate escapes. Maybe if we were able to support and pay additional deputies more money or have additional deputies, we wouldn't have had that type of issue. We didn't have the resources needed to implement that. So it's just, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul here. So, once you get into the numbers and he's able to report back on what those cash balances look like and where we end up at, I'm sure you all will be more comfortable. But as of now, we're going to take money from another budget line item to cover this. So we are going to operate. The jail had 2 to 3 feet of water. It was going into the pods, affecting the residents at that moment. So we had to make a conscious decision, hey, you got to come in here and get this done. Not only that, to have the cover, not to have another escape, we got to get the razor wire up. Since the building's been there, it hasn't had it.
Well, I just want to make sure without this money, you're not telling us that the jail's going to...
No, we're going to move forward. We're going to redirect the funding from other sources. Like you said, you had to pay $200,000. Maybe we could have took that $200,000 and got better suited deputies to kind of do the work that we need done.
Well, say that again?
So what you're saying is it's our fault they escaped?
No, you're saying it's our fault. You got to pay $200,000.
No, first off, and I'm not going to let you say it because I don't think Mr. King knows what you're saying. You keep saying, if you would have given us $200,000 more and we'd have had higher paid deputies, you could have saved money on the front end. That's what you're saying repeatedly right now on the record.
I'm not saying that. I'm
That's
saying that
exactly
you get.
what you said. You're saying that we made a choice that since you didn't give you money for deputies, now we're paying $200,000 a week for a man-hunt.
No, I'm not saying that. I am not saying that.
You're not saying so.
No, I'm not saying that. You're saying that you're paying $200,000 because of the escape, and I'm telling you, if we would have had additional funding and resources, we could have had additional deputies on the pod to support
You just said it again. So what you're saying, let me be clear, because you just said it again, and the public is watching.
Yeah, the public is watching.
They're saying if we'd have given you more money, we wouldn't be paying $200,000 out of pocket for the escape.
I'm not saying that. I'm not.
We were able
Are we both having the same conversation?
We're talking about having more deputies on the pod. Do you have any other questions for us?
Yes.
You know that our allocation decreased.
We're ready to move forward.
Yeah.
I got cut out. I'm back in. First of all, the good thing about, I guess the good thing about this meeting, it was important that it happened. We have all of the people who understand money in the room. We have the Sheriff's Chief Financial Officer. We have the Legislative Auditor. We have our great Finance Department people. And we have the CAO. So for the public, what they would want and what I would want is that for all of these great money minds and counting minds to get together to talk about how we do a few things, right? How do we harden the prison to make sure that we don't leak inmates, right? How do we fix the plumbing to make sure that we don't leak water? And how do we manage the money to make sure that the public knows we're not leaking finances? So at the end of the day, with all of the theater here, the good thing is that all of the experts are in the room, and you guys are going to come back to us to figure that out. No one wants to see money taken from NORD. No one wants to see money taken from programs, but no one wants to see a correctional facility that's dysfunctional, that can't house its people, where the citizens are frightened because of the potential corrosion of the system for people to get away, and that we have a jail that we've wasted millions and millions of dollars on. And what do we know about preventative maintenance or corrective maintenance? That if you don't do it, it's going to cost you more in the future. So we can make a lot of these statements about taking money from where, but unless we start printing it, it's going to have to come from someplace to make sure that this facility is what we want it to be, and that it operates professionally, and that they're great stewards of managing the money, but also managing the population in jail. So I'm really, even with all this, I'm really kind of encouraged that everybody who has the power to kind of fix this is actually in the room. We're beyond blame now, guys, because we still got some folk missing. We still got some pipes leaking, and we still got the community guessing who's on first. Thank you.
Councilman Green, a question for the sheriff? Okay.
My last follow-up. I appreciate the work of those who are here in the room who work with the sheriff's office. I know that it's a difficult challenge. I would like to have Sheriff Hudson more information, and I'd be glad to meet with you on the plan, because I've got to assume that with the situations as we have them now, we're not going to get a lot of additional employees at this time. What's going to be the plan to get within the capacity that you feel your employees, let's focus on the employees, are safe? We've read about that. The overpopulation, for whatever reason, is a danger to the employees there. We read in an article in the Times-Picayune about the fights that go on and the injuries that take place. I think that that's one of the impediments to doing the recruiting that needs to be done. I'd like to talk to you more. I'd be glad to talk to you offline, but I think it should be public. What is the state doing to help relative to the transfer of persons whose transfer will make that facility safer for them, or their imprisonment safer for them and also for the employees? That's an important concern. I look forward to talking to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, wait, Councilwoman Moreno for a last question.
Final question. Can you just walk me through, where was the 3 feet of water that you all described? You said there was 3 feet of water from the plumbing issue?
So it was 2 to 3 feet.
Okay,
It was
where?
discovered on,
That's a lot of, 3 feet of water?
2 to 3 feet of water. It was a lot of water.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a lot
Where was
of
it again?
water. It was on the 3rd floor.
3rd floor?
Mm-hmm.
And can you, I'm sorry, just explain to me, like, how big was this area? How
So
many?
it's a jail pod. It's a jail pod.
so
It's
the
an
jail
interlock.
pod.
It's a pod.
The jail
so
pod
the water
had
was
3
leaking
feet
in
of
the
water.
interlock.
Was there anybody in the jail pod?
Yeah,
So that you had
residents.
inmates standing in 3 feet of water?
No, we shut it off before it got into the actual pod. But the water rose to that level, 2 to 3 feet. You would have you can't see it from where you at. You would have to physically be there to experience and see what we experience and see. And I'll refer to Ernestine, when you all came, the water was still at that level. I mean, it was leaking. I don't think it was at that level, but it was leaking.
It was leaking, yeah, it was leaking.
It was
but
pouring out, like the water
Yeah,
was pouring.
I mean, it's a 1-inch line, so it can put out a lot of water, but I mean, I
Was it 3
don't know
feet?
what the measurement of the depth
Was
of
it-
it was.
Okay. But was it 2 to 3 feet?
I wasn't in the pod. Would you say it was that high?
It's a lot of water to the point where it is flooding out each section, but it's also making its way down each floor. So it's not just contained on the 3rd, it's actually also flooding every floor
All right,
too.
so it wasn't 2 to 3 feet, got it, okay.
All right, thank you. Mr. Montano, you guys are free. We have no further questions for the sheriff's office. Thank you for being here today, guys. Please
Yes, sir.
send us your estimate. That'd be nice. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if you actually watch Stavro come down there and grab it for you.
Yeah, we want to put it in the museum.
We have a lot of, if we had a museum of dysfunction, it would be more than that. It'd probably be four or 5 floors.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Montano, why don't you bring up Mr. Threat as well as Trey, as well as the fire department, and everybody else. All right. Mr. Montano.
Good afternoon.
Well, we're going to take you at the end, but if you want to go right now real quick, Mr. Morgan, you need to leave. The sheriff to hear? I'm sorry. We didn't know she was going to leave. But Mr. Morgan, why don't I take your card? You can go right now. They're not. They're coming back, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan, to be clear, we did not think they were leaving. Oh, okay. No, Mr. Morgan, if you want to talk to Mr. Green, okay. Oh, okay.
All right. Talk to the sheriff's office. I appreciate it. Talk to the sheriff's office. Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Montano, I think you kind of know where my line of questions. I mean, the main issue is, when were you made aware of the plumbing issue at the sheriff's office?
Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for having us today. And just to recap, I think the role of myself and the administration and this council has been said many times by the councilors to ensure that we are adequately funding all the necessary agencies under the purview of the city of New Orleans, which includes the sheriff, the police department, DPW, the fire department, and everybody listed there. And we take a very fastidious we take a very strong methodology to determine how those funding needs arise. And that's why you saw so much centralization on the question of the fund balance and ensuring that we don't stifle bills being paid and we don't stifle the ability to address emergent situations. And it's not just the external agency of the sheriff, but it's other agencies as well that we want to make sure that that is relevant. So it's not the administration trying to hold money back or the council. We just have a lot of people that are needing the funding, and so we have to adequately appropriate and fund and have a clear line of insight to that. So just wanted to highlight that, and I will reiterate that we will continue to work with the Sheriff's Office on their development of the budget. And as the CFO mentioned, we meet tomorrow collectively on the implementation of BRASS. We have all the people in the room to try to incorporate and figure out how, maybe just not BRASS, but perhaps the payroll system, and then we can also go from there. So related to the plumbing issue, I did a quick search on emails, and I think April 15th, John Williams sent myself and Councilmember Giarrusso a list from Judge North that had the information related. We've had some plumbing issues, generally along with everything else. So the earliest email I saw was that, but there was nothing specific. And then later in the media, we saw, and then I know members of the team were notified by the sheriffs or the sheriff's office to help address that. And I want to say that was maybe Saturday, which we jumped to address as quickly and efficiently as it can. And I know Chief Nelson was kind of point on that, and I want to say it was last Saturday. I could be wrong on the date when we jumped in to help, and we will continue to. When we get a call and the sheriff needs help or her team needs help for some emerging issue, we are committed to help support and ensure that we have the well-run jail to the best of our ability. And there is also, to your point, a very large tab running as a result of the manpower being used to find and apprehend the fugitives. But that's a blank check, as been reported. We're not going to direct the chief or any public safety agencies to hold back funding in order to catch the criminals that are out there right now. So, but that will have an impact as we get closer and build into the deficit. So as I close and maybe turn it over to the chief or address more questions, we are daily monitoring our cash flow, our financials, our deficit. We use our fund balance as working capital, and there's a whole level of complexities that go into that. So in no way are we not being thoughtful about what money is needed and how we're going to build the next year's budget. So with that, I could turn it to Chief to give more details on the plumbing issue or address more questions.
Well, I think the chief can answer this as well. I mean, the issue is, we heard from the plumbers who were there today that they submitted a invoice or an estimate 3 to 4 weeks ago. Have y'all ever seen this invoice or estimate?
I have not. I deferred it.
Ray, have you seen it?
No.
Thread, have you seen it?
No.
Chief, you would never have seen it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I think the challenge we have today is when you have someone go into the press and the media and say about how the city is not paying its bills and helping on an emergent flooding issue, the reason why I want you here today is that I want to be very clear. We weren't told about the emergent flooding issue or to the degree at which it was affecting the operations of the jail. And to date, because I checked my email, I had nothing on plumbing ever. And more importantly, and I guess this is also a question for Trey, part of how we manage the city's bills is that we keep a tight ship and we know what bills are coming in and what bills are going out. I know, Trey, if there's a property management issue and there's a contract, that contract goes into BRASS, right?
Yes.
And everyone at this table, except for you, Chief, is tracking what's in BRASS and what the costs and what those allocations are. And I guess what's troubling to me is, to date, as of today, and I hope the plumber sends us the estimate, we've never seen an estimate whatsoever for any plumbing work at the jail, correct?
Not to my knowledge, correct.
And I think, Chief, I think this is where you come in. Was there any reach out to the city, to your department, for example, to deal with rampant flooding at the jail?
And I apologize, I do not know what day it is they all run together. But the Public Safety Director, John Thomas, called me, and I think either he was with the sheriff or he had the sheriff on three-way, and she was asking if we could assist with supplementing their pumping, or if we could pump water in some kind of way to flush the toilets. So we told her, actually, one of her chiefs, her safety officer that handles the emergency management and everything, is a retired fire chief at the New Orleans Fire Department. So we reached out to him, and I told her we'd reach out to him, find out what the issue was, and see if we could assist. Speaking to him, the issue was not something that it was just like we could supplement their sewer water, right? What they needed was potable water. They needed drinking water supply, main water supply, because as the plumber mentioned earlier, it was that main line that was leaking and causing issues. It wasn't something that we could assist with.
Okay, and did they ask the city at any point to provide bottled water to the jail? Did we get that formal request?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so just for the public to be aware of, since you're all here today, the city has been ready and willing to provide aid when it is requested. And you said there's limited outreach to see if you could help. I think there was a miscommunication on what kind of water they needed, but beyond that, has the sheriff contacted the city, any of the people here, specifically for help?
Well, I mean, and I can tell you that, you know, as you know, that in the council's bond priority list, we had no requests from the sheriff for any type of infrastructure work that we wanted to push forward. Usually the request comes through Vince Smith, the Capital Projects.
And Vince is back there.
Vince, you know, as you know, we sacrificed in the federal decision to fund OJC, you know, that came out of mostly DPW budget, about close to $100 million.
Right.
But we have not received any infrastructure. In the case of JJIC, when they had problems with security locks, with the council and administration, we came forth and funded that as a priority. But I mean, for me, myself, as Deputy CEO, I have not received any requests for support.
I want to hit that point one more time because I think it's important. When JJIC had issues, they worked with Clint, they worked with everybody else, with the council to put that request against our bonding capacity.
Right.
You have had no requests from the sheriff's office in this regard?
No.
Okay. Council Vice President Moreno.
Wait, excuse me. I did receive an email request from the sheriff's office for help with emergency contracting Friday afternoon.
Which Friday? This past Friday?
Yes, this past Friday. Saw it by somewhere around 5 or 6 o'clock when I'm really making my way through my emails. I did send a message back for John to reach me on my
Was there specificity in that emergency contract request?
It was just about emergency help based around the plumbing.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing that told me what the issues were, no scope, nothing along there. I didn't actually know about the flooding, honestly, until today.
Okay. Council Vice President Moreno.
Great point about JJIC, because I remember when that all went down. I mean, they had a real emergency there, and we all got together, and we all fixed it, and then we also came up with a long-term plan, so thank you, Joe, for that. Okay, so back to last week. Councilmember Morrell and other council members are right. It's like many of us found out from the media, and then I actually got a call from a state official saying, like, hey, are you aware of what's happening in the jail? Apparently there's this big emergency. And Mr. Montano, I called you immediately, and you were like, this is so weird, because it's like, why weren't you getting this level of kind of urgent type of message from the sheriff? Can you explain to us a little bit about just the level of outreach that the city really did do to try to get a good hold of what was happening of the jail, including, from what I understand, even the mayor talking to the sheriff herself?
Yeah, I think that once it was made known, I think that the sheriff did reach out to the mayor, and the mayor, of course, reached out to us, and that's hence all the wheels started rolling. But at the time, I had not heard anything about it other than you may have been the one to tell me about it. It had already been reported. So, but before that, no, we had not heard or received any information. I mean, and once again, I think the whole team will re-articulate that we're willing to help. If we know if there's any issue that we can help support prior to or during, or, I mean, we have a lot of resources, I mean, both not just financially, but we have plumbers, we have professionals, we have a lot of different resources that we can redeploy as necessary. And I hope the line of communication does open more fluidly, because we are a partner and we're willing to support her.
Because that's what I think was really bizarre, is that I'm hearing from state officials like, hey, we've been told there's an emergency. I'm hearing from the media that's saying, oh my gosh, there's an emergency. And then I'm saying, well, I haven't been notified. And then I'm talking to you and you're like, well, we're not. And Chief Nelson, it's like, what? Well, we're not sure of this emergency. And so that's where it gets very bizarre and then difficult for us to figure out exactly how to help if we are not getting full transparency from the sheriff and her team as to like what's really going on. And I don't know if it's a situation of where, you know, they want to seem like they have it all handled, but if you don't have it handled, we are here, we are happy to help, particularly if it really is an emergency. But they need to tell us. They need to tell us. And so I think that maybe that's what happened here, is that we weren't getting the full picture, and while we were willing to help, we weren't told exactly how. And even when you all were offering things like the pump truck and things like that, it's like, oh, well, I think we're okay, stand down for now. Isn't that what you told, Chief?
Yes, when we talked to their, I'm not sure his title, their safety chief, he was telling us that no, they didn't actually need pumping assistance. What they needed was a potable water supply or the water supply.
Right. So because we're hearing from, or at least I was hearing from state folks like, hey, they really need a pumping assistance. And then when you all reach out, it's like, no, I think we're going to be okay. So the better line of communication, whatever we need to do to make that work so we have a full understanding as to what's happening in the jail, I think is going to be really necessary moving forward. And thank you all so much for your work in this regard.
Yeah, if I could, Councilmember Moreno, we do have a pending request for about $5 million from the sheriff's office that we have, I think now, Vince, on the proposed bond appropriation for the fall, and that's for security, you know, intercom and some office infrastructure work. So that should be on the up and coming bond appropriation that we're going to put forward to the council.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple questions. I think these are hopefully not too trivial. It would seem historically, I'm speaking to everybody here, not you, Chief, because Chief's just here, but whenever we've had a significant issue that dealt with buildings and safety, we have tried to respond as quickly as possible. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, when we had a situation with the police department in the older building, with the rats getting high off the weed in the evidence room, with the officers not having air conditioning, when that was brought to our attention by NOPD, we worked with the administration to address the issue as quickly as possible. Am I incorrect?
Yes.
As soon as we could, right? We're going through all the proper processes. I guess what continues to bother me is that we heard from the plumber that he submitted to her 3 to 4 weeks ago an estimate for this emergent plumbing issue. I am beyond, I would say troubled, I'm more annoyed and troubled that to date, as of today as we had this meeting, we have not seen this estimate for a plumber. And I think for anyone to say the city is unwilling to provide help, that this council is unwilling to provide help, I think what we have with the facts before us is that before today, we didn't have a clear idea of what help was necessary. And as we sit here today, there is going to be an ongoing pushback, I think, from this council as far as the cost of the plumbing, because there seems to be evidence that the department, the sheriff's office, can absorb it. But more importantly, how can we, Trey, can you process a request for funding if you can't get an estimate or a scope of work as far as what the funding is, or what the problem is? No. I mean, Joe, you've been doing emergency management for years. Can you solve a problem without a bill saying how much it costs to solve the problem?
No, we got to have an estimate around.
And Mr. Montano, when you're trying to balance our books, and you're trying to figure out where to find the money, you have to see what the request is and how much money it is, right?
How much money, and then what type of money, meaning capital or operating?
Because I think part of the challenge here is that because we don't have the information, the scope, what's necessary. I mean, the primary problem, the emergent problem, is the flooding. There's obviously some issues on security, which we're going to have to come back to, like y'all said, as far as if locks are necessary and needed, how can we potentially use some existing revenue streams or bonding capacity to address that? Or the sheriff now has bonding capacity and has a revenue stream from unbonded millage that was just passed. I mean, part of us working as partners is part of us also sharing the pain of the cost. And when I look at our last meeting and the meeting today, there increasingly is a resistance for the sheriff to share the costs. And if we see the bill, that certainly gives us the ability to talk about what are the pots of money that can be utilized to pay it. But as of today, as of right now, we still don't have a bill, right? I don't have one. Do you guys have one?
No.
Okay. That's all I have. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Is there anyone else who, I had one card from Mr. Morgan. I didn't see any other cards. Anyone else want to speak today? Okay. Well, with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. Second by Councilmember Thomas. All in favor? That's 6 yeas, no nays. We are adjourned.